And many more have been forced from their homes. The African Union is leading the talks in South Africa, with Nigeria's former president Olusegun Obasanjo and Kenya's Uhuru Kenyatta acting as brokers. International calls for an end to the war have been mounting in recent weeks. The African Union Commission Chair Musa Faki welcomed the start of the talks, saying he was encouraged by the early demonstration of commitment to peace by the parties. He pledged the African Union's continued support for a process to silence the guns towards a united, stable, peaceful, and resilient Ethiopia. So how did Ethiopia get here? Well, the Tigrayan People's Liberation Front, TPLF, dominated its politics for nearly 30 years until Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed came to power in 2018. In November 2020, Abiy ordered a military operation against rebels in Tigray. He accused the group of attacking military bases. Later that month, he declared the operation finished. In June, the Tigray People's Liberation Front recaptured its regional capital, Mekelle. By July, it had advanced into the regions of Afar and Amhara. On October 11th, Ethiopian forces launched a ground offensive and airstrikes a week later. The following month, the government declared a state of emergency after the TPLF retook towns on a road leading to the capital, Addis Ababa. The northern region has been under a blockade for 17 months with no banking, telephone, and internet services nor media access. While human rights campaigners have warned of potential abuses by both sides in the conflict.
We want comprehensive, credible, independent investigation into all the atrocities committed in this conflict. Two, we want humanitarian aid as immediate as possible. And we want the international and the regional community to respond to the situation in a manner which is deserving of the gravity of the situation.
Michael, associate editor at Tagat, a website documenting possible war crimes in Tigray. And from Nairobi, William Davison, senior Ethiopia analyst at the International Crisis Group. Thank you all for joining us on Inside Story today. Let me start with you, Andualem, in Addis Ababa. Looking at the big picture, how hopeful are you today that an end might be in sight to the war in Tigray?
Thank you very much for having me. I think the fact that both sides have agreed for this peace talk is an encouraging and it's a positive signal that the people, both sides, whether they are Tigrayans or Ethiopians in general, are hoping from these peace talks because it will bring an end to the suffering of the people, not only in the Tigray region but also in the neighboring areas and the whole country in general. So people are hoping that this will be an end to the suffering of the people who have been going through very severe challenges.
And Walem, what are the parties discussing precisely in South Africa?
In my opinion, the first issue would be about ceasefire, and probably the demand from the government side would be, I imagine that they want the TPLF to put arms down and talk, and on the other side, the TPLF may demand to be raised from the terrorist list and to get some amnesty for its leaders. These are the priorities, I think, on the desk before they go into the detail of what will happen after that, what would be the fate of TPLF and what would be the region's administration and how it should go into normal transition. And all those issues will be the next step, in my opinion.
A number of issues on the table, no doubt. Teklai, in Sweden, if I can come to you, looking at the big picture, Andualem says he's optimistic because the two sides are finally talking. What are the chances, do you think, of bringing this conflict to an end, to an immediate stop? Do you think that we might see some genuine progress in South Africa?
Thank you, Paulie, for having me on. I'm afraid I don't share in Andualem's optimism. And the reason for my pessimism is the behavior of the Ethiopian government. Let me start by reminding you a statement that they issued one day before the talks began. The Ethiopian government said that the talks were an opportunity to consolidate, and that's their word, to consolidate some incursions, partly because the Tigrayan forces had retreated from urban areas to avoid urban warfare. And the Ethiopian government seems to believe that the final solution is going to come when they control the capital city of Tigray, Mekelle. And indeed, that was the assumption actually when they set up the talks. The assumption was that by the time the talks would begin, they would have controlled Mekelle, and that would have put them in a position to demand that the Tigrayans totally surrender. And when that when it became clear that that wasn't possible, then they found themselves in a very, very awkward situation now. And actually now in the negotiations in South Africa, there has been rumors that the people representing Ethiopian government couldn't actually commit to anything because they didn't think that they would find themselves in the situation. So I don't expect anything positive is going to come. The Ethiopian government has always been clear that the thing that it wants to get from the negotiations is to lessen the pressure from the international community, the enormous pressure, and for them to release funds that they have been withholding because they have been demanding the IMF and the World Bank that the Ethiopian government should stop war before it could claim benefits. So I am very, very pessimistic about any outcome from the talks.
William Davison in Nairobi, your thoughts. Is there today enough trust between the two parties that could lead to progress on the substantive issues?
I think perhaps what we are looking for realistically from these talks is a cessation of hostilities agreement that would be renewing the agreement that was in place this year between the federal and Tigray governments. And I think what we should recognize is that these are important negotiations because they represent the beginning of a formal African Union internationally supported process, and therefore they probably in the long run will be the way that this conflict is resolved, and they're definitely the way that it should be resolved. But I do think we have a rather long way to go. As your other guests have made clear, I think the issue is under what terms could we have a cessation of hostilities? Currently we have active military confrontations inside Tigray, with the Ethiopian Federal Army supported by the Eritrean Army attempting to establish control over all federal facilities, as stated by Addis Ababa. Now, whilst the Tigray delegation has said that they do want a cessation of hostilities, they have also said that they want Eritrea's military to withdraw from Tigray, and it is not clear that the Tigray government and forces would agree to a cessation of hostilities if the Federal Army keeps pushing forward with its Eritrean allies and tries to take complete control
William,
of Tigray.
who would you say is in the stronger position right now?
The strongest position militarily?
Both militarily and at the negotiations in South Africa.
What we know about the military situation is that the fighting's been going on since the 24th of August. Over the last 2 weeks, as Teklai was describing, the Tigray forces have retreated from some urban areas. The Eritrean and Ethiopian militaries have pushed further into Tigray. We've also heard in the last few days about considerable continued resistance from the Tigray forces, particularly around the crossroads town of Adwa. So it seems to be a rather mixed situation, although undoubtedly there was some momentum on the Ethiopian and Eritrean side over the last couple of weeks.
Right. Let me come back to you, Andualim, in Addis. What do we know is happening right now in and around Tigray? What's the extent of what we know? Because, of course, it's been very difficult to get information from the region. The federal government, prior to the talks, had said that it would restore telecommunications services across Tigray. Did they take that action? Did they restore services? Is more